So welcome to the BC Regional Science and Technology Network video series on access to capital. We're trying to give you some tips on setting up your early stage technology companies, how to attract investors, and how to get your company off to a good start. Today we're going to talk about a very important topic, and that's advisory boards. A lot of entrepreneurs may think that they are their target market, or that they know their market, or that they know what they need to know about business, but by having an advisory board, it's an excellent way for you to actually get some third-party advice from experienced people to do it right. And today we have with us Tom O'Flaherty, and Tom has been a founder of companies, he's been an investor in companies, he's been an advisor to companies, and you may know of some of them like Maximizer and Simply Accounting, which have been quite successful. Thanks for being here today, Tom, and maybe you could tell us, just set us up a little bit more about, you know, what is an advisory board, and why is this an important issue for us to discuss today?
The importance, Dan, is that many founders feel that their main challenge is just getting a product finished and getting their first customers, and thereafter it'll be clear sailing. The reality is that if you're fortunate enough to have a growing business on your hands, there's just a myriad of business issues, some of which you can anticipate, some that you can't, that'll have to be handled. And typically, founders and inventors haven't had a lot of experience there, so advisors are people that can help you deal with all of the unforeseen issues that will happen if you're lucky enough to have a growing company on your hands. So what is an advisory board? It's a small group of people, generally business oriented. There's generally no scarcity of technical knowledge in these companies. The numbers can be from 1 to 3. They usually meet once a month for anywhere from half a day to a day, and help founders deal with all of the business issues that will be cropping up as their business hopefully grows.
So there actually are a lot of details on how you're going to go about setting up an advisory board, and what's entailed in finding one and fully leveraging one. And there's actually a 4-part video series that the BCRSTN has available, and just check the link that's right here, and that will tell you where you can find those videos to learn more about an advisory board. In the meantime, Tom, can you maybe give us some examples about, in your experience with advisory boards, where you've seen them come into play and the situations and the benefit that they provided?
Sure. As you may know, I presently serve on a number of advisory boards, and I've been doing this for quite a number of years, and I have no end of examples that I can give. So what we have today, I've got, I believe it is 6 examples. So the first one is a small company that gets a chance to make a really big deal. So this company is perhaps a dozen people, and the size of their deals are $10, $20, $30,000 custom programming type deals. And then one day they get a chance to bid on $1 million deal with a very large, as you might expect, bureaucratic company. What the founder discovered is that there were many people inside this large company that had to be involved in approving and negotiating the deal. In some cases, their information was very uncertain, because the deal seemed to be floating around. And what he didn't realize is that this is really what life is like inside a large organization. He became very annoyed and essentially wanted to walk away from the deal. But what we were able to help him understand is that this is life inside a large organization. He needed to be patient. He needed to provide the information and deal with the uncertainty. And somewhat grudgingly, he allowed us to advise him, and he went along with this. The good news is he eventually did get the deal. He acknowledged quite readily that without his advisory board, he would have blown it at a very early stage, and now his company has moved to a whole new level. So we all felt pretty good about that.
In one of our other videos, we talked about the different types of companies and the difference between being a service company and actually developing a product. At some stage, usually a service company realizes that if they really want to get scalability and to grow, that having a product allows them to do that. It opens up more opportunities. Can you tell us a story about a service company that you worked with as an advisor that then tried to make that leap from service into product?
Yes, and I agree. A lot of service companies, especially doing custom IT work, realize that they're working for time and that there isn't a lot of leverage in this, and maybe their founder or some of the smart people do get an idea for a product. And in this one particular case, they did get an idea for a product. They did develop it quite well. They got some early beta customers, and then got to the point where they wanted to go raise money. in order to really make this product go. The issue here, and we touched on this in a previous session, is that investors, they don't like, well, investors like pure plays. They don't like companies that are trying to do different things, and they certainly don't like the margins of a service-based company. So what they want to see is a separate company that contains just this product, and they don't want to be bothered having to try and understand the service-based company. So our advice as advisors was to set up a separate company. Maybe it had the same founder as the shareholder, maybe it had some others. You have to convey the intellectual product, because this is IP that was developed in the service-based company. They'd actually applied and received SR&ED tax credits, so that had to be moved over to the other company. The lawyers tried to complicate it, and we sort of stepped in and said, no, this isn't terribly complicated. This is basically quite simple what we want to do. So there certainly is a number of issues that have to be done. But until you do that, you're not going to get an investor, and the people in your company are always going to be confused about, who are they working for and what is the mission around here. So we did succeed in convincing the founder, the advisee, and setting up the separate company. That's been done now. He is starting to pitch to angel firms, and he's attracting attention. And again, he does admit that without having set this up as a separate company with its own separate mission, its own IP, that he wouldn't be able to go forward.
So another, I think, one of the larger challenges that you deal with when you're the lead of a company or a startup is related to people, right? So there's customers and there's people, and by people we mean the people who work for you. So can you give us some examples of where an advisory board's been able to help an early stage company or CEO make the right hiring decisions or set up the right hiring processes?
The example I like here, and it's a fairly recent one, it's a company where the founder was getting the deals, as often happens. The company was running at about $1.5 million a year, and that's about as far as the founder could go. The founder realized that he had to hire some salespeople to take the company further. The trouble is, he really had no idea how to structure a sales job. So if you're going to run an advertisement or seek a recruiter, you have to be able to define the position. Didn't really know anything about sales compensation. Didn't know anything about how to manage salespeople. So we were able to step in and say, here's a typical job description for a salesperson. And this, of course, is because we understood how his business worked. With that understanding, we were also able to recommend a compensation plan. We also helped with the screening interviews and helped a lot with the final selection. And then once the person was on board, we were able to give the founder a few very, very basic pointers on sales management. But again, without that advice, and in fact I can go back, the founder had tried previously to hire a few salespeople, and they'd all failed within several months. So this one, we're pleased to say, is working out a lot better. And that's because we were able to give some real hands-on help in what to do.
So obviously that's the one side of the people equation, and sometimes you have to make the difficult decision and let people go as well. How can an advisory board help an entrepreneur or CEO deal with those difficult decisions?
The issue really involves whether you can fire somebody for cause or without cause. And really, to fire somebody for cause, they have to do something really bad in Canada, like theft or gross insubordination, like perhaps physically attacking your supervisor or completely disregarding the instructions they've given you. So let's set that aside and assume that the vast number of reasons people get fired, well, there's two reasons. One, they're not doing their job properly, or two, the company is facing financial hardship and simply has to release them. So those cases are where somebody is being fired without cause. They have not done something harmful, and therefore you have to pay them severance. And the mistake here is to assume you know what severance is. If you've got somebody in your company that's an HR person, they probably do, but typically founders don't. And so the advice that we almost always give founders even if the person is reasonably junior, and certainly if the person is senior, is spend a few $100s on a labor lawyer and they will give you the right severance amount. Ideally, what you want to have happen is to assume that the person you're firing will go to their lawyer, and their lawyer will say, yeah, maybe I could get you a little more, maybe they could have offered a little more, but it's really not worth your expense in getting me to go after it. And that settles the issue.
I think one of the obvious places where people are told to go and build a board of advisors is when they're trying to raise money. How are some of the ways or some experiences you've had helping companies that were trying to raise money through a board of advisors?
The main issue here is that many founders they underestimate the degree of preparedness that they have to put in place before they go seek investors. And that's harmful in a couple of reasons. If they're ill prepared, they're not going to get their investment. And the investment community is sort of odd in the sense that you rarely get a second chance. You really need to make your best impression first. We had an example of a company that I work with, again, very confident in their product and market, and they had crammed the whole story onto one little sheet of paper, and they wanted to go forth and seek investors using that one little sheet of paper. And of course, we were able to say, no, that won't work. So we showed the person at least the table of contents of a typical business plan, and said even if you don't prepare a total business plan, you at least need to cover all of these points. So the main thing with founders that want to seek investment that we have helped in many occasions is that they're poorly prepared. And then of course the other thing is that many investors will want to see that you have advisors. So simply having advisors helps.
Thanks, Tom. We really appreciate you telling us some stories about how you've helped companies by being on a board of advisors. I think it's obvious that they're going to help you save time and money and run your company better and save you from making mistakes on your own. So go out and find yourself a board of advisors and then go out and find yourself some investment. Thanks for watching.